Most AI search is just Google with a concussion. It looks confident, it talks fast, and still hallucinates like it's paid per lie. Founders are betting their entire companies on tools that can't tell the difference between a fact and a vibe. And the bigger your document pile gets, the worse it gets. You wait 20 seconds, open 6 more tabs, and forget why you asked the question in the first place. That's not productivity. That's digital quicksand. Now, if your company's brain is built on untrusted memory, how many smart decisions are you making that are actually just beautifully formatted mistakes? Welcome to AI for Founders. I'm Ryan Estes. Today, you'll learn how everything search is getting faster, cheaper, and way more accurate by shrinking massive knowledge bases and killing hallucinations. This is for founders, CTOs, and operators drowning in SOP, strategy docs, customer notes, research or sensor data, and wondering why AI still feels unreliable. And here's the wild part. Imagine taking a giant library of data, reducing it up to 99.5% while making searches up to 4 times faster and improving accuracy to the 99th percentile. Think 260 gigabytes turn into 1.3. That means small businesses can finally afford the kind of enterprise RAG that used to cost a fortune. And it opens a new founder play. Take a weird, valuable data set nobody else has, compress it, make it searchable, and then sell predictions and insights as a micro SaaS. If you want more of this, sign up for the newsletter at aiforfounders.co. It's like a gym for your founder brain, minus the mirror selfies. 3 minutes a week that can save you 3 months of building the wrong thing. And if this hit, leave a review on the podcast with one sentence that would either make your co-founder laugh or your competitor nervous. And quick break for our sponsor, kitcaster.com. This is the premier podcast booking agency for founders who want customers to find them, not the other way around. You show up with your story, Kitcaster gets you booked on the right shows, and those episodes turn into a compounding content engine across clips, posts, and search. Go to kitcaster.com to get you booked. That's Kitcaster by Moburst. Ankit, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. It's my pleasure.
100%. Really excited to talk about your product and talk about your experience building it. We're talking about Morphos.ai, and I believe the product is called Key. Is that right? KI?
Correct. Key stands for energy in Japanese. It is a search enterprise application that we build for your average consumer and for your small business. So it is a RAG application, if you will, that utilizes LLM technologies with our proprietary vectorization technology to be able to outperform some of the bigger companies and just raw LLMs when it comes to data inference.
Incredible. So let's unpack that a little bit. Above the fold, it says all your work in one place, introducing the everything search. So give us a couple use cases and a couple integrations that kind of paints a picture a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've ever used NotebookLM or ChatGPT or Gemini, there's a pretty good chance that you're uploading documents or some type of information for you to be able to reference that later on, right? You're seeing a lot of companies are uploading SOP documents, strategy documents into these large language models to be able to reference, as part of their automation stacks or just to make it easier for people to access that information. And so, this technology has been around for quite a bit with enterprise RAG. The only problem with it is that it's extremely expensive and highly inefficient. And so it's priced out all of the small businesses or even individual consumers that would like to access the technology. And so when you see tools like NotebookLM come out, it's very reminiscent to what it is that we do. We're just focusing on the performance.
Amazing. Talk a little bit about the performance.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I can talk a little bit about some of our case studies. And so, our big claim is that we're able to reduce the size of a vector database by up to 99.5%. And so, if you have experience working with RAG pipelines or vectorization as a whole, you can understand just how big that number is in terms of reduction. And so, we were able to put in 260 gigabytes of the Project Gutenberg, the Gutenberg library, I should say, as part of our Project Gutenberg case study. 260 gigabytes got reduced down to 1.3. And so, that's over 15 million vectors getting reduced down to 76,000. And so what does that mean? It means you have a 99.5% decrease in your storage and therefore your storage cost. You get 4 times faster queries and you get don't quote me on this, just below 60%, I believe it's 58, 59% improved search quality up into the 99th percentile. And so that is extremely, extremely powerful because a big issue with these LLM technologies that they hallucinate a lot and they take a long time to process queries when you're asking it to search a very large database, right? If I give it, 500 gigabytes worth of documents, which is not uncommon in medium size or even large scale enterprise for specific things or specific departments, a query could take 15, 20, 30 seconds to process, and the information is still, inaccurate, right? Because it's hallucinated. So that was the big issue that we wanted to solve. And we've been able to do that and make it affordable for, small businesses or your average user for the cost of ChatGPT Pro at $20 a month.
Incredible. Yeah, if you're waiting 20, 30 seconds, you're going to have 6 more tabs open. You're going to be looking at a YouTube video.
Correct.
Forget what you were doing.
Exactly. Exactly. So that, that's a big bottleneck because now we're looking at, AI adoption is absolutely skyrocketing. Everybody wants to know how to utilize it. And there's a McKinsey report that came out, and I forget the number now, but there's a lot of distrust when it comes to information retrieval by these LLMs, right? People don't always trust the information that they're getting, and people are still dealing with this on the day to day. I was using Google Gemini earlier, and I was throwing in some trick ball questions, and it hallucinated and gave me wrong information. That's why LLM technologies have not been able to integrate very well into specific industries like medical or militech applications, because in these environments you can't afford to be wrong even once. And so when you have hallucination rates like that and you're dealing with lossiness, that's just something that can't be done. And so that's why LLMs and these AI companies are struggling to break into it. And we came in and we solved that problem.
Love it. And kind of this is kind of my favorite instance in creating business models right now. Is you're taking unstructured data sets, let's just say paper. People have houses of paper and data that, in the past, maybe it's cost prohibitive to like vectorize that, turn them into PDFs, bring them in, filter, write the software around it, boom, boom, boom. But now you have LLMs that can do that heavy lifting for you. So it sounds like, if I've got a tough shed full of like paper and I spend the time to vectorize it, what I want to do is bring it into Key. And that way it's going to shrink the data, get my response way up, and now I have kind of a data set, a knowledge base that I can reference
exactly
faster and easier.
Correct. Exactly. And so, speaking on that, the way that the current RAG pipelines work is that every time you want to upload new data and you want to add more vectors into a vector database, you have to re-vectorize the entire data set. And so these companies are dealing with downtime when it comes to updating their vector databases on the back end on a nightly basis. Right. So that's a dedicated dev team purely focused on that. With our core technology, which is called Green Vectors, ingestion is seamless. So that means your vector database has no downtime. And so we realized that this was so important, and we wanted to build a consumer app that we're currently in beta for, which is Key. But we wanted to really give this to a lot of the AI companies, vector database companies, and RAG as a service companies. And so that's where we actually built our enterprise platform called Katana. And so that is an API and SDK combination. It's a hybrid model. So, waiting and fasting is done on your end. Your proprietary data does not need to leave the, company premise or premises, I should say. Nothing gets sent to us. And you're able to use our API to access our core algorithm. And you just plug and play it right into your RAG pipeline. So even if you have an AI application of your own that, you're utilizing LLMs and a couple other tools to deliver some type of product or user experience, you can seamlessly plug in our solution and you're going to get instant performance benefits.
This episode is brought to you by a dangerous idea. It's called Reading, specifically the AI for Founders newsletter. 47,000 founders strong now, and it's the good stuff. No top 10 AI tools that will change your life written by someone who doesn't ship product. It's just real breakdowns of what's actually working in AI. Who's raised, who failed, who pivoted, and which founders quietly built $1 million in ARR while everyone else was arguing on X. It's written for people building with AI. Every week you get tactical frameworks, unfair advantages, breakdowns of real companies, and the occasional existential question about whether your startup is intelligent or just well-branded. It's free, it's sharp, it might mildly offend your current workflow. Go to aiforfounders.co and subscribe before your competitor does. Because the only thing worse than being replaced by AI is being replaced by a founder who reads. That's the newsletter at aiforfounders.co. Now back to the show. Amazing. Cool. And then the interface itself is chat-based, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, the interface for Key is chat-based, very similar to, a ChatGPT or Google Gemini. Looks very similar to that. We're on beta, and we wanted just to get it to a beta stage to be able to kind of demo the product. And we've been focusing primarily on the enterprise solution because that's where a lot of our customers are really wanting it to be integrated into. You do have applications like Notebook LM, and that they have a wide range of features. They're extremely feature rich. We wanted to focus on the infrastructure layer, so to speak, that technology is now built on top of. And so we wanted to become the status quo, I should say, when it comes to RAG applications, and now even going forward, other vectorization applications as well.
Let's talk about examples of some of those to paint the picture. So this is going to be kind of the infrastructure for RAG applications. So what does that mean exactly? Is that basically so that you have kind of a siloed data sector knowledge base that you can interweave into other kind of sectors of the business?
Yeah. So right now we're actually working with a Militech agency that primarily focuses on drone technology. And so, you see this across the board with drones, aerial defense systems, practically any hardware systems that's deployed in any type of environment. It's utilizing, I should say, a lot of sensors. Sensor data itself is very heavy and it's very loaded. Especially if you're talking about like LiDAR sensors, thermal imaging, processing, you name it. It's a lot of information. And so what sensors currently do in a lot of these applications, it's constantly streaming information. And, if I wanted to, let's just say, put an NVIDIA Jetson on a drone and run a machine learning model on the drone itself, you're constantly streaming information, the GPU is getting utilized constantly. And there's a lot of computational cost that goes with that. And so what we're able to do, and we're just going to be publishing a white paper about this very, very soon, and we're testing this, is by utilizing our technology, we're able to reduce the noise, right? That's the big claim with green vectors. We're able to reduce up to 99.5% of the noise. And so when you're talking about sensor data, if you're able to strip that down, with all the noise, your images, the colors, borders, you name it, just to be able to get the information that you want. Like, for example, the door was opened, a human crossed the road. We spotted a car over here. This is another car in front of us, so we don't crash. These are the type of applications we want to really focusing on by bringing a vector database and being able to bring this vectorization technology to the edge.
Cool. So it's really like, because it's a chat, you're giving it an agent persona, and
Yep.
with the data, you're giving it personality and skills. So much
Correct.
like when Neo taps into the Matrix and he's like, "Oh, I know
Yep.
Kung Fu." Like that's
Exactly.
essentially what you're doing with your organization is you're like, okay, we just took all this information on Kung Fu, we just uploaded it in. So now we know Kung
Yep.
Fu.
Exactly. And so, there's a wide range of applications that green vectors can be embedded into. And so, when it comes to the chat section, that is a RAG-based application, right? Very similar to ChatGPT, Gemini right now. That's a RAG-based application for data inference. What we're also exploring, like I mentioned with the drone technology, is it doesn't have to be an SLM or a large language model. It can be it can be a computer vision model. It can be any type of machine learning model that relies on sensor inputs to calculate something and then spit out an output that we want to be able to impact by being able to reduce the noise on the inputs to make the model run more efficiently, to make it run on cheaper and not as bulky hardware, and be able to run it faster.
Cool. Let's take it into science fiction terrain. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
So you're talking about LiDAR. Let's say we scan the entire Giza Peninsula with LiDAR, and we can find certain, let's say, underground chambers. We can unlock different things. We see where pyramid footprints. We see new stuff.
Yep.
The application then is we bring that information into Key, which makes it lightweight, which gives it a personality, which gives it skills. We can upload, all of the history of Egyptology, and then we could chat with Key to basically give us maybe some assumptions of what the culture looked like, how old it was, this kind of thing,
Yep.
because basically it's learning all the information we're providing it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely do something like that. And so, if you're talking about LiDAR sensors, if you've worked with them, it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
Especially if you're deploying it on something like an autonomous system, a drone, something to be able to capture actual imagery at scale. If you're doing it with a skyscraper or like a pyramid or whatever the case is, you definitely need to put it on a drone unless you plan on climbing all the way up and doing it yourself. And so what typically happens is when you store LiDAR sensor inputs, you have to process it, which means you have to bring a drone back. You have to bring it back to a command center, whatever the case is, process that data locally on a pretty expensive machine to be able to process it. Our goal and what we're planning on prototyping is to be able to remove that need, where you can actually process information on device via NVIDIA Jetson Orin or something like that, and then being able to upload that information into a tool like Key and giving it more reference material, and then asking it questions in natural language to be able to get better and better insights. That's definitely something that you can do to be able to speed up the process, as well as to access information you normally wouldn't be able to access.
Amazing. And consumer application might be this is your second memory, so
Absolutely.
it's pulling from all of available metrics. It could pull from the audio from your phone. It could pull biofeedback from your watch. It could pull
Yep.
it could pull environmental, all that stuff in real time, and basically provide you with like a photographic memory of all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're completely agnostic for all data inputs. The way that works is, all data types can be vectorized, right? They're all numerically represented in some way. And so we're completely agnostic with our core technology. And so that's something we want to do, and being, RAG applications were just the first step. It's the first thing that we decided to do because it was the simplest and the easiest to build a beta off of, as well as to demo the technology at its core and its efficiency. You can do a side by side of Key and ChatGPT and just look at the accuracy as well as the speed in comparison. You'll be completely blown away. And now with the 2026, our big goal was now expanding that and wanting to see how do we apply this to non-language models. How do we apply it to edge technology? And that's something that we're building right now, is going to be a handheld device. We're planning on calling it the Keyboy, which is a RAG application on a edge device that can be built on top of a Raspberry Pi 5, and it's completely handheld. It's completely off the grid, decentralized, and you're going to be able to reference vast amounts of data with extreme precise accuracy and speed.
And the fact that it's off the grid means it's not, you can't tamper with it, or what's the benefits there?
Benefit there is that you don't need a Wi-Fi connection to make it work.
Mm.
Right? It can be completely disconnected. You don't need server-side technology to be able to run this model in conjunction with a vector database, right? That currently isn't possible. Nobody's even thinking about putting a vector database on an edge device. It's just something that's, we thought about it, it hasn't worked, so we're not doing it anymore. And so now you're seeing the need for data centers. You're seeing the need for expensive hardware. That's why, the top companies like NVIDIA are pouring billions and billions into R&D to build better and better hardware to be able to process all this information. So by being able to reduce the noise, we're able to reduce the hardware that's required to be able to run some of these models and to do, inference search or whatever you're trying to utilize it for. And we're able to empower every single person that has an iPhone or an Android to be able to do this completely locally. So that way, you're not paying for those expensive, API costs, and you're not requiring a good, strong internet connection if you're, far away from, a city, or you don't have cell service.
And if we're in Egypt looking for, pyramids, then you're not going to have that. You don't want to carry around
Exactly.
Starlink. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So, an example I gave is that, if you're a doctor, like if you're a dermatologist or whatnot, you can have a pretty efficient computer vision model that's, doesn't require that many, I would say, parameters that you can store on an edge device of some sort. It might have to be a little bit bigger, and then give it a vector database for reference and be able to interact with it. So you can actually diagnose people on the go with this portable device, right? Yeah. You don't need to utilize such expensive technology. People don't need to go to hospitals. You can go to them. It's very empowering when you start looking at being able to put that data on people's phones and be able to utilize that, where everything can be done locally, especially in a world now where decentralization is becoming the trend. People want to be able to tap out of the grid because we've seen when these legacy systems like, AWS or Cloudflare go down, and then all the connected systems, get shut down with it, right? This happened not too long ago, a couple months ago, right? AWS was down for, half a day, whatever the case is. And you're seeing essential services go down with it as well. So that's a big problem when we start relying on these large corporations to provide this infrastructure for us. We have the hardware functionality to be able to run this locally. So why not?
Yeah. Well, and also it kind of provides a path back to ownership, where
exactly.
We've been renting everything with SaaS forever, which has its benefits for sure, but also has downsides. Do you really own your Tesla, or does Elon own all of them?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So, a lot of people have been really aligning with the idea of owning their data, right? Not wanting to give it to a third party provider to store it. They want to own their data. They want to have it on their device. And any application ends up running faster when you just think about it. If it's running locally on your machine, opposed to needing to make an API call and then all the server side infrastructure that's required, it's faster and it performs better. So it's like, why don't we do it? We get data sovereignty and independence, and we get better performance and cheaper costs.
And ultimately, I mean, flash forward 12 months, 24, 36, we're going to have little robots, you
Yep.
know, and I think that's going to, the privacy of robots, considering like how intimate people are getting with LLMs already, once the
Yep.
thing is in your lap, stroking your hair, I'm
Yep.
assuming like we're going to be a lot more honest with those, you
Right.
know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So that's funny you brought robotics. Autonomous systems and robotics is something that we're really looking into this year, that we want to integrate with. We plan on being able to integrate with, the entire NVIDIA lineup and, putting our core technology directly on it. So, a lot of these autonomous systems, for example, they're using, the Jetson Thor, I believe is for like humanoid robotics and whatnot. So being able to put our technology on that, we would have a massive impact in that space as well.
Yeah. What's the special sauce? What gives you guys an advantage here? This feels like very natural. Like it's like, oh yeah, absolutely. I want faster speeds. I want smaller size data. Like, why are you guys doing it the best?
That's a very difficult question to answer just because we are patent pending still. What I can say is that we have reimagined the architecture at its core and the way that these legacy vectorization methods work. A lot of people mistake us for a compression company. We're not compression. And so, an example I can give you, or I'd say to best describe that is, a vector is a multidimensional variable. And we're able to take a variable that's multidimensional with many, many, many dimensions. It's up to like 1,000 plus, and reduce it down to one. So if I want to describe a water bottle to you, you don't need to know what color it is. You don't need to know the exact shape of it. You don't need to know the brand of it. You don't need to know the density of the material that's used. You just need to know very limited information for you to be able to discern that this is a water bottle. And so our technology kind of revolves around that thought and that approach rather than trying to ingest all the information. And so, when people ask me like the similar question, how does it work? I tell them, I say, close your eyes. And can you still hear me and understand what it is I'm saying, having closed your eyes? I say, yes, of course I can hear it. I said, perfect. Your brain is also having an easier time processing audible information because now you've gotten rid of one sensory input. So that's a very similar, I would say, approach that we have when it comes to the actual mathematics of vectorization technology.
Interesting. Okay. Cool. And you've priced it very affordably. I mean, $20 a month. So you are
Correct.
kind of getting into a consumer place where you're finding small businesses. What we're seeing now is there's a lot of examples of these almost micro businesses. And maybe
Correct.
this is a case study and you can play with it a little bit. Let's say my mom was documenting snow conditions and weather conditions for her mountain town for the last 40 or 50 years. And
Yep.
she might have the most complete set of that data, you know?
Yep.
So it sounds like with Key, basically, she can upload all of those handwritten newsletters, vectorize it, structure the data, bring it in, and now she can have a conversation with
Absolutely.
her data, and then maybe make predictions there forward. So if in the past she was contributing to the weather page for the local newsletter, now she can maybe create a SaaS software where it's like, hey, based on 50 years of historical data, here's what we can expect to see. And, maybe then the ski resorts and things like that become customers of hers.
Exactly. Absolutely. And so, at some point we have an enterprise solution, but we do want to be able to offer an open API
Yeah.
and to open sources to a certain degree so people can build applications on top of it outside of, large scale enterprise. But absolutely, you're absolutely correct on that. We wanted to make it affordable. We wanted to be like the Costco or Trader Joe's of, AI search and inference. And so it was either you paid a premium fee, 50,000 up, and you still didn't get great performance, but it was the best on the market, or you just weren't able to afford it and you have to utilize LLMs like ChatGPT, which you're going to deal with all the issues that we discussed earlier. We wanted to be able to provide the best solution at the most affordable price. And the only reason why we're able to do it is because of our vectorization technology and our reduction in vector storage. Our costs are so ridiculously low that we're able to translate that to the customer. And so now for the same price as ChatGPT, you can get, ChatGPT with us or Gemini with us, plus the vectorization technology, which outperforms all of them.
Incredible. As far as the enterprise solution, what categories or verticals of businesses have big, juicy data sets that you know would benefit from this on day one that aren't really employing it right now?
Very good question. I would say all of them, but if you all data is at this point is really really bloated. And when you're talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning application, it's all extremely bloated. That's why we've had to build better and better models. That's why we've had to build better and better hardware to make up for the fact that the underlying data is so bloated. It's like I ask you to find a needle in a haystack, but the haystack is the size of a house, right? It's very difficult to do, so it's going to take you a lot of time. And so that's been a big problem. But I would say in terms of applications where it's not being utilized the most, I really got to go with edge devices in robotics and militech. It's not being utilized there at all. A lot of militech systems are utilizing very old, archaic systems for satellites, drones, any type of autonomous vehicle, you name it. Augmented reality, virtual reality headsets like Anduril just came out with Eagle Eye. A lot of it is utilizing old technology, and so I feel like if we were to apply green vectors into that, there'd be massive benefits, because now it's able to run completely locally on the edge, right? So on the device itself. If you're talking about your average Gemini user, they're going to notice a difference in terms of speed and accuracy, but it probably won't be that transformational for you as an average user of it, opposed to a large scale company that is utilizing this in their application itself for whatever purpose. Or if you're a drone that wants to be able to fly very precise routes, and you need instant feedback from sensors, vectorize that information, calculate something from that data, and then execute some type of instruction set, there would be a bigger, I would say, a bigger transformational process on that end.
Yeah. Educate me a little bit on the workflow. Like, why is the vectorization an important point or important step?
Yeah, so when you're uploading any type of data and you want to be able to give it, any type of, let's just say, an LLM model, access to that data. The LLM turns it into numbers, right? Computers operate in the language of numbers. It's something that we as humans don't naturally always do, but mathematics is a language in of itself. You can describe anything with numbers. And so vectors is the way that we're able to do it. So I can describe, a water bottle, like I mentioned, or a house, or, a room with a set of numbers, right? I can describe, a room by its dimensions, right? Length, width, height, volume, what is the color on the walls, dimension, like all these things. And so you have to translate it into numbers, which therefore is a vector for a model to be able to utilize, calculate some information off of, and then to be able to utilize that information for either executing instruction sets or retrieving that information and spitting it back to the user. And so that's why vectorization is such an important technology. It allows us to be able to give anything that we want to a model and translate it into a language that the model understands, and then have it spit back out to us in a language that we understand. And so that is what RAG is. That's what vectorization primarily is for.
Nice. So you're the CTO, and
Correct.
I'm curious about your workflows and how you're leveraging AI to basically amplify and augment what you're working on, and how you see that interplaying with kind of humans, and maybe where you're differentiating what tasks are being performed by AI agents and managed by
Yep.
certain team members.
Yep. So we're a small startup, and so when you're a startup, you try to be as resourceful as possible. And one of the beautiful things about being a startup is that because you're small, you can move very fast. So testing new ideas, new approaches, we can do it on a day-to-day basis to see what works best. So we're running split tests all the time with our approaches whenever we're working on something. I utilize AI on a daily basis for every single one of my tasks, from my emails to planning projects, documentation, programming, you name it. And so we've been seeing a lot of success, especially when you're exploring new avenues of where can this technology be applied to, by utilizing tools like Gemini Deep Research. right? Being able to sift through mounds and mounds of data from research documents, textbooks, you name it, and being able to compile all that information into one document to quickly explain, is this even possible? What's the benefit of this? What is the importance of that? That is something that we're doing on a day-to-day basis just because now we're expanding our application set and where we want to be able to integrate this technology. That is probably has had the biggest impact on my day-to-day workflow. I can say when it comes to programming that, Claude Code has been an absolute game changer for us. It allows us to ship out updates extremely fast. We've used tools like Lovable when it comes to building out the website or building out presentation portals in a fun way. So you're not just sifting through a slide deck like everybody else. I'm able to dynamically present this technology to you in a very simple, easy way that you can access no matter where you are just by clicking on the link. And so it's been a crazy process, and it's a lot of split testing. But overall, it has had a massive, massive impact. And the more tools we use for a variety of different use cases, the more we start realizing how important green vectors is and where it can be applied into. And so that has been, a major reason why we even decided to dive into militech applications or drone applications or satellites and whatnot.
Well, and now with all these tools, which is great because, it allows us to 10x and beyond kind of our productivity, but you don't have a lot of redundancy because you have a small team. So, which puts your responsibility, it's very high,
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you
Absolutely.
kind of hedge against kind of redundancy and like, if Ankit gets the flu, does everything stop?
Yeah, so very good question. That's something that you have to deal with whenever you're a small organization of any type, right? There's more important points of failure. And so what we've done is, one, we're extremely, extremely lucky to have an amazing team of highly, highly intelligent people. We have some really great board members that advise us. If, a certain member is out of commission due to sickness or whatever the case is, we do have redundancies in place, and we do have, I would say, contingency methods in place. It's probably a better word for it. In terms of SOPs of what needs to be done, what can be paused, and what can we kind of shift and pivot forward onto, and to work on that in the meantime. So that way we're still staying productive. That has been a massive, massive, I would say, contributing factor to our productivity, is that we always have contingencies. Is that if this doesn't work out for so and so reason, or if this fails for so and so reason, what are we going to be doing in the meantime? Is there another project we can work on? Can we prototype this? Can we ship out that feature instead before this person gets back on board, whatever the case is? And so that allows you to move fast, break fast, pause fast, pivot fast. And that's like Silicon Valley's go-to saying. Everything is about speed. And so, especially when you're a startup, you don't have much to lose, and that's what makes it, extremely important to understand, is that if you just keep working fast, at some point, you're going to figure out what clicks. You're going to figure what works, and that's something that we have over these large scale enterprises, which have become very bureaucratically designed, and it takes a lot of time, I should say, for information to travel from the bottom to the top. We don't have that issue, and so that's a big contributing factor to our productivity.
Cool. I'd love how you think about, or love to know how you think about product too, as far as like time to value. Because ultimately, if you're delivering a subscription product, people want to get in there and see results quick. I think
Yep,
Lovable is a great example of winning really fast.
absolutely.
Where like you start playing with it, you're like, wow, this is really cool. How do
Yep.
you build in those wow moments, and like what's the first 5 to 10 minutes of like using Key look like?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is, one, we make it easy to upload your documents. We learn from the best, right? So we're taking a lot of inspiration from ChatGPT, Google Gemini in terms of user interface to make sure that it's sticky, that people actually enjoy utilizing this platform. The biggest benefit, I would say, is that getting onboarded, uploading data, and we're going to be connecting, data, your accounts, so data automatically pulled in. You don't have to manually upload anything, but we make it extremely easy. And I think the biggest wow factor is going to be the speed, right? When you're able to ask an LLM a question regarding a 1,000-page textbook, and you get an answer in 3-4 seconds, and you don't need to worry about it being inaccurate. That, I think, is a big wow factor, right? For someone who's doing research, if you're a student or a teacher, or if you're a scientist or a mathematician, being able to get answers that quick with that level of accuracy is absolutely ridiculous. It just hasn't been seen before. And you can pay for speed, Companies have been doing it with compression technology and by being able to deploy more and more hardware and horizontally and vertically scaling their applications. But you can't pay for speed alongside accuracy, right? It's a very difficult thing to do. You can't just buy more GPUs and get better accuracy. It's not going to work that way. And so that's a big thing with us is that you get best of both worlds. And so, we live in a world now where people want information instantly, right? And unfortunately, with LLMs like this, there's a trade-off. You can get it almost instantly, but is it always accurate? And then what is the time lag to now go and verify that information by actually going on Google, looking at some Reddit forum to make sure that it's actually correct or whatever the case is? It completely ruins and completely gets rid of the need to actually utilize an LLM technology for information retrieval, because now you have to second guess every single thing. And so that's something I think is going to be a big wow factor when people, first hop on the platform and start using it.
Yeah, and that then it starts including to industries that can't have hallucinations.
Absolutely.
If you're dealing with medical records or you're talking about military applications, it's like 99.999 for infinity. I know we can't get 100%, but
Yeah.
like it
Yeah.
really can't with some
Yeah.
stuff, especially if you're doing research and like maybe your professional reputation is on the line and
Yep.
you quote some hallucination, like that could be devastating.
Absolutely. So, we were thinking about this as well as like, we would love to be able to work with a hospital or a veterinary hospital of some sort and be able to connect their EMR systems directly into Key. And so now every single, especially with veterinary, because that doesn't require HIPAA compliance. But all of your patient records now are accessible via, Key itself. So if you're a doctor and you're on the fifth floor and, you're just on the go, you're working with a lot of patients, doctors, this is very typical of hospital environments. Everything is fast, go, 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 go. You don't have the time to do a lot of manual information retrieval, or if you do, it takes up a lot of time, right? And then cross-referencing that information with textbooks or journals to find out, what is this specific disease? What is the go-to form of therapy or treatment for the specific thing? And that takes up time, and overall it adds up hours in the week that you could have been more productive. Now we would be able to enable a doctor to be able to go on their phone, type in a patient name, it gives everything that you need to know regarding that patient, and then cross-reference that with a 2,000-page textbook of some sort of repository of data that talks about specific diseases that correlate with whatever this patient has. And so that technology doesn't exist right now, right? And doctors are still forced to do things the old way. But with our technology, we now enable that.
Yeah. I mean, with medical, there's so many applications and many opportunities for new data sets,
Absolutely.
because we're just kind of breaching the surface of the kind of biofeedback that we can gather,
Yep.
involuntarily through our bodies, whatever, or, what people actually want to upload. And
Yep.
in particular, that's going to be stuff that you want to hold pretty close to the chest and make sure it's private,
Absolutely.
unfortunately, in the United States, I'm sure the insurance companies would love to take a look and be like, oh, well, Ryan, half the time you didn't walk 10,000 steps. So I don't think we're gonna cover your ankle surgery because
Yep.
actually, there's the data privacy now more than ever, just because it seems like there's really kind of nefarious intent. And I hate to
Correct.
say that, but I think the fact that you guys are making it the possibility for private is amazing.
Yeah.
How big's the team?
Team is just we're at 10 members and we have 4 board members as well. But core team is 10. Yeah.
Incredible. How'd you finance?
So everything is bootstrapped. So self-funded. This was I came on in October of 2025, but it had already been a 2-year project prior to
Wow.
me coming on. And so, my biggest contribution, my job has been, what can we apply this technology to? How do we do it? How do we get beta test set up? How do we actually integrate this and go to market with this technology, not just for a RAG application, but for other applications that we talked about before? That is majority. I would say I would say 80 to 90% of my work scope.
You could do anything. What stood out about this
So
when they
yeah,
came with the idea? What was it that caught your attention?
yeah. So when it comes to technology like this, when I was kind of pitched on the whole idea and what the proprietary technology is able to do with up to 99.5% reduction in vector storage. That is a number that you think of and you instantly start thinking, no way, this is impossible, right? No one has been able to do it. The big companies have tried and failed. We have applications and infrastructure that's built on top of this core belief that it can't be done. And you're telling me that it can. And so, when I first heard about it, just like everybody else I talked to about the company, they all want to, call me out and say that's impossible. And then I get to show them a demo. They're like, wow. Right. And so that's the same thing that got me as well. And I got very excited thinking about that. How can we utilize this technology, not just for RAG, and we would be able to massively benefit RAG in of itself. That's the primary use case for green vectors as of right now. But what else can we do in industry, right? And so for me, it was almost like the invention of the LED, right? The LED light bulb. Once the LED was invented, now it's being utilized everywhere. It's utilized for your street lamps, your light bulbs, your like light bulbs in your home, your cars, you name it. And so now it has become the new status quo that everything is built on top of. And so that was something that got me really, really excited. And you can imagine how many possibilities there are where this technology can be implemented and how fun it would be to be a part of that process to build things that the world hasn't seen as of yet.
Foundational level.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super cool. When you're thinking about go to market, how do you find your first customers?
So, we're very blessed, I would say, to have a extremely, extremely good board as well as team in terms of some of our connections and, who we're able to have discussions with. And so that has been massively beneficial. We've been able to talk to some pretty large corporations from the get-go. They've been kind of helping us and steering us in the right direction. The best way that I find is that when you're able to make the claims that we are able to make, companies listen, right? The executives and the VPs, directors, the CEOs, they listen because this is something that's completely brand new. So it's so, enticing that they're almost forced to turn their heads and be like, wait, who is that? And, what did that company, what did they do? What did they just say? And so that has been I would say a really good and strong variable when it came to being able to have meetings and sit downs with these companies. And then, one person knows another who knows another, and it becomes word of mouth and word starts spreading along these, within these networks and circles that from there, we've been able to get a lot of organic growth.
Yeah. When you go into those conversations, are you treating them as like sales calls, or are you kind of giving them kind of some authority as design partners? Like, how do you initiate that as a startup?
Yeah. So it kind of depends on the company we're speaking with. If it is majority of the companies, I should say, are utilizing or wanting to utilize artificial intelligence on edge devices or for specific use cases. And from there, a lot of these conversations really start out as a conversation of how can we work together, right? Does our technology overlap with yours? Can we impact you guys in a positive manner? Can it run on your hardware stack? What would be the theoretical before and after if we did? And from there, we're then able to start working out a deal because once the numbers become apparent, now it becomes, very simple yes or no decision if we want to do it, a pilot or a beta to test this out. And so a lot of the conversations are very organic, not really salesy. When you're able to tell people about the technology, a lot of times they start thinking themselves, where can I apply this in my company and if this is beneficial? And, so far we've had a very high success rate with that approach.
Love it. All right. We're ready for the quantum round. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Is that a piano behind you?
Yes, it is.
Do you play?
I used to, not anymore. Haven't had the time for a while now, but I hope to pick it up again. It's as a programmer, we're so used to typing and doing a lot of keyboard work. I decided, why not shift over my talents back to the instrument? And so I'm hoping to get back into it soon once I can, open up my bandwidth a little bit.
Cool. Love it. Everyone listening to this podcast loves business ideas and shiny objects. What's a business idea you have right now you feel like could go 0 to 1, let's call it 1 million annual run rate in 12 months?
It's a very good question. And it's very difficult to answer because especially with artificial intelligence now, you don't know what idea is going to be good today and terrible tomorrow, or what's going to be good today and replace tomorrow. And so I would say, if we're looking at artificial intelligence in general, there's 5 primary layers. And so you have energy, you have chips, you have infrastructure and data, you have models, then you have your applications. You're seeing a lot of people go into the application space or the model space, right? They want to build a new model that's better than the competition, or they want to build an application that has a better user experience. I would say those are the first 2 to get beaten, or for you, it's very easy to outcompete another company if you have something unique. And so I would focus on the three foundational layers, which is energy, chips, and infrastructure. Chips is very difficult to get into because it's very costly. Hardware is hard, right? That's why you have companies like Nvidia. Um, and energy is also very difficult because, unless you come up with a new renewable energy source or some type of method to make energy more efficient, that can be difficult. If you don't have the background for it, it requires a lot of money. And so I would focus on infrastructure problems, very similar to us. There's a lot of, when you start looking at technologies and how they work today, within AI and outside of AI, you start looking at these systems and you realize just how ridiculously old they are that this technology is built on top of, but it's just become the norm. And so that's why we do it. And I think there's a lot of niches in the infrastructure space that if you're a little creative with the help of, LLMs and being able to educate yourself on this topic, you can come with some pretty impressive approaches to innovate on the wheel that's already been invented and just figure out how to make it a little bit better. And if you're able to make infrastructure a little bit better, the impact once you get down to the application layer becomes massive, right? Oh, when you're looking at it from macro view, a 1% change in efficiency can mean a massive, massive benefit when you're applying it to millions of users or consumers.
100%. Do you have a epic failure that you like to talk about?
Oh, too many, too many. So, which one should I start with? I think that's a prerequisite if you want to be an entrepreneur and if you want to
That's
work
right.
in a startup, right? It's like, how many times are you willing to fail before you finally hit the one? And it's funny now because I can't say for certain that this company is also going to be absolutely successful. You can never say that when you're a startup, right? I founded a automation and data analytics platform called Realtor Copilot. And so I wanted to, I have my real estate license. I got licensed when I was 18. And so, I'm able to see a lot of realtors in the space, and, a lot of them lack the tools that I would say level the playing field between a agent that is just starting out with no knowledge and, no money, no team, compared to an agent that's been in the industry for 10 plus years that has a team to help them with marketing, follow up, sales, you name it. And so I wanted to build a platform that leveled that playing field by introducing uh, AI automation. And this was, I would say 2 years ago now. And so I worked an entire year on this project and, we're able to scale it up and build it. And I'm ready for launch. And I'm based just outside of Toronto. And so if you know anything about, Canadian real estate, specifically within the GTA, is that it completely crashed and the market is in a pretty bad spot. And you're seeing a record number of agents no longer renewing their licenses. They're not doing any deals. There's a crazy statistic. I think it's like 90% of deals are done by like 2% of agents, something like that.
Wow.
Don't quote me on that number, but it's something ridiculous like that. And so you're seeing a massive inflation in terms of people that actually have licenses, but not anyone is doing any deal flow. And so from there, the market completely, just pulled the rug out from under me. And I'm thinking that I can try to double down and try to scrape users to make this profitable. Or would it be better to kind of chop this up, right? Chop up this car, if you will, take out the engine, take out the chassis, take out the wheels, and repurpose it for something else. And then I would say a lot of that experience, the process, and the automation technologies, I was able to utilize in my next venture, which was Skyloop AI Consulting, where we built custom AI automations and custom software for clients. And so that was a big, big help. And that's what what I was doing before I joined Morphos.
Cool. Yeah. I was talking to Siggy. He's the founder of Overtune. And he said
Yep.
being a founder is like, when Homer Simpson was a successful boxer, just because he
Yep.
would stand there and take shots
Yep.
until the guy got so tired that he could just push him over.
Correct. Correct. When people ask me, what is the number one trait that you'd say for an entrepreneur? And I wouldn't even say it's not intelligence. It's not, you know, your capability, your competency. It's none of these things. I would say the number one thing is your pain tolerance,
Yeah.
right? It's easy to work and to work on a project when you're excited about it. It's easy to work on it when you know you're going to win. It's very difficult to do that when you don't know when you're going to win, when you can't see the finish line, and when you're just getting hit in the face day after day after day after day, and you're almost mad. You've almost gone a little crazy to it. And so, a lot of people, you look at Einstein, you look at any of these founders that have, been successful in industry, all of them say something very similar. And, one thing I tell people is that you just got to show up every single day, right? If you throw as, 100 darts on the board, there's a very, very high chance you're going to hit bullseye at least once, right? It's just a matter of time you're willing to step up to the plate, show up every day, act like a professional, and one day you might hit, right? So pain tolerance and endurance, I would say, are the number one traits that any founder should look to employ if they don't have it already.
Sounds like such fun.
Yeah, absolutely, right? It's it looks glamorous on the outside, and then you start doing it, you realize I don't want to do this, right? But
It's too late.
the problem, yeah, it's too late when the idea is so enticing and it's so exciting, right? You don't have a choice, right? You say I could go and get a job and I can take a simpler route, if you will, and go do that. But when you have this amazing idea staring at you right in the face, and then the idea or the thought of what could be starts creeping in, that's when you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore, and you're just forced to do it. And sometimes it can be a toxic relationship. It's like I love her, but she doesn't love me back until she does, and then it works.
Yeah, it's the idea of type 2 fun. It's
Absolutely.
completely miserable when you're doing it, but in retrospect, you're like, wow, that was awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Learning to embrace the suck. That's something that, I think a lot of Navy SEAL guys say. I think David Goggins says that a lot. It's like learning to embrace the suck and enjoying the bad times. It's almost a form of brainwash. But when you're able to do that, you end up having fun even on your worst days, right? Just
Yeah.
because you're focusing on the journey rather than the destination. And so just being able to play the game, win or lose, is a win. And so every single day becomes a good day, despite the fact it might be a 12-hour, 15-hour work day. You're off no sleep. You've been coding for hours, doing something for hours. It still becomes an enjoyable process. And so I think if people rewired what they, thought of as bad or considering a bad day, or that, this wasn't the best of days, or this was exhausting, and start reframing their mindset towards, I got to play the game today. It was fun. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big mental shift that if people start deploying, it actually becomes easier to have more endurance, because now you're looking at it differently. It's no longer a negative, it's always a positive.
Love it. If you were entering school, college right now, what would you study?
I would stay away from programs that are very, very technical in terms of teaching you a very limited skill set to perform one or two or three tasks, right? So you see this with, programs like, HR programs, sometimes marketing programs, a lot of which are in the business scope, even engineering as well. There's some universities and programs that are very limited scope. They teach you a few tasks and they tell you to become a specialist in this. I think because of artificial intelligence, it's catching up faster than anybody can, hope to compete with. You should go to university, if you do plan on going, and get yourself in a program that forces you to think. So this is why I like engineering so much, because what you learn in university is not nearly as important as to you learning how to learn, and you learning how to break up a big problem into small chunks, and being able to tackle one chunk at a time. That is a much more valuable skill set than remembering what the specific textbook said, right? I studied computer science. I don't remember 90% of the stuff that was taught in my lectures. In fact, I barely went to class. And so, but learning how to learn is such a valuable skill set that when you combine that now with LLM technology, and then with products like Key, and I'm sure there's going to be dozens and dozens, hundreds of more products that help you learn at such a fast rate, you become very, very difficult to compete against, because you're able to bring the macro while the AI is able to bring the micro. And so, I can't hope to get better than machine learning at, remembering a textbook. It's just impossible. I'm never going to be as good as it. But how do you apply that information from that textbook? How do you think big picture? How do you connect dots that typically should not be connected to come up with unique ideas and solutions and approaches? That's where the big skill set is. And if you learn how to do that, you're guaranteed a job no matter what you study.
Love it. Is there a product you'd recommend, whether it's a TV show or a movie or food, or what's something you're really excited about that people should know about?
Hmm. I'm very excited about a company called Clicks, and they have a new small phone coming out, and I forget what it's called. I think it's called the Connector, Clicks Connector. I'm very excited about that because I think right now with smartphone technology, we have so much in our hand, and it's coming to a point where now it's too stimulating, right? And you're looking at crazy statistics where like 80% of tweets are AI generated or bots. And so you have people that are spending ridiculous amount of time on these applications and they're not getting anything out of it. And so being able to narrow your scope of focus but still being able to access these technologies that help you learn and help you interact with the world in the way that they are doing now. I think that's very, very impressive and very, very useful. I would say a big productivity hack. A lot of people ask me, how do you stay focused for so long? Just get rid of all the distractions, put yourself in a room with nothing but you and your computer, block out all social media applications, and just see how fast you get things done. Right. And so a company like Clicks is focusing that productivity space by going back and, kind of going back in time to what phones used to be, which was an application, a device purely for communication. It wasn't for posting selfies. It wasn't for, surfing the web or doing all these other things. And that's something that they're focusing on. I think a lot of people can benefit from that, especially when you're looking at the average attention span going down. You're looking at a lot of issues in the education system. Kids aren't able to remember information as much. They're not, they're losing critical thinking skills. A lot of that I do think has to do with social media, and just reducing people's attention span. Netflix is now planning, I believe, to adopt a vertical scroll type of function similar to Instagram or Facebook to make it more interactive for the younger generation. And it's like, we should go back to, how do you stay engaged when, watching a 2.5 hour movie like we did back in the day? How do you get engaged when you're reading a book for 3 hours? How do you stay focused for longer periods of time and kind of opening up your mind to be able to absorb all these ideas for prolonged periods of time? I think that's a massive superpower. In the modern day, technology has made it extremely easy to access information, and it's the biggest repository for information and education. But they made it so difficult to utilize because of the attention issues and the applications that they offer us.
Yeah, no, this is a good one, man. I appreciate you saying this. It's clicks.tech if people want to check it out. It said designed for doing, not doom scrolling. And it looks like
Correct.
a BlackBerry, so it
Yeah,
brings back the
exactly.
keyboard.
Yep.
I've kind of had this instinct for a while now. It's like it just TikTok and Instagram and YouTube it just kind of lost its luster. It's like
Yep.
I don't like it. So if I'm on my phone and I have the doom scrolling time, I'll just play Clash.
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly. Right.
because truly it's just like it's just too much. So I
Yep.
think an idea like this is fantastic because ultimately, even for me in particular, if I have the option to just go like drown 90 seconds in TikTok videos, I'll do it, you know.
Yep.
So
And it's so easy to do. It's so easy to do.
yeah,
They're paying data scientists and engineers millions of dollars to figure out how to keep you on the platform for as long as possible.
yeah,
And you're now seeing, we're getting closer and closer. I believe it's called dead internet theory, which is like a theory that, majority of the content on the internet is going to be computer generated, AI generated. And so now it's like, it's not even organic material coming from actual people. Like if you go to your average, Twitter post or Twitter thread, you just look at the comments, a lot of it is bots. And so, that can be used for a variety of use cases when you're talking about propaganda or pushing ideologies or one person operating 20, 30 accounts. The information that you're getting is not really, I would say, accurate to what people are actually thinking, what they actually do want to discuss. And so it becomes very dangerous when you allow that to happen. You can sway public opinion very easily. This has been proven time and time again. And so, going back and making life simpler, I think is going to be the next, superhero trait that people start deploying. You're already seeing people wanting to go minimalistic. You're seeing
yeah,
people wanting to live off the grid, doing things the unconventional way because now they're sick and tired of, the constant notifications on the phone, the constant, doom scrolling, the constant this, the constant dopamine firing off in your brain. And then by the end of the day, you feel exhausted. Your sleep isn't good. You feel lethargic all the time. And you just realize if I got off this thing, I'm so much more focused. I feel so much more alert. I feel healthier. I'm moving better. I'm thinking better. And so, now adopting technology like that, I think that's going to be a big, big trend. You're already starting to see it. And I'm excited to see what, companies like Clicks and anyone else do. And I'm definitely going to be playing around with some of that stuff because, it's just so valuable when you can control your attention like that.
percent. When you have space in your life, there's room for poetry and beauty. Otherwise,
Absolutely. Right.
you're missing a richness. Cool.
Yeah, we've forgotten the greats, right? If I speak about Dostoevsky, people don't know what I'm talking about. They think I'm 100 years old. And it's like this was the norm when we were growing up. Is we had cartoons, yes, we did, but a lot of our source of fun and learning, the ways that we learned imagination, creativity was via books, right? We learned it by reading the Harry Potters and whatever the case is, and it has so many inherent benefits, and there's so many studies that can probably prove this as well. That when you teach people and especially children how to think rather than, you know, specific facts or memorization or flooding them with information, you end up getting much stronger critical thinkers. And that applies across the board to anything and everything, whatever it is that you want to be doing in life or industry or whatever the case is. When you learn how to think at large and you learn to be creative and to connect ideas, you're a superhuman in of itself, especially in this modern day and age.
Incredible. Ankit, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate it. The website is morphos.ai. That's morphos.ai. What's the best place for people to connect with you personally online?
LinkedIn would definitely be the best. LinkedIn, Ankit Dheendsa, my first and last name. Feel free to, follow me, shoot me a message. I love speaking with founders, tech enthusiasts, anyone involved in the tech space that's excited about technology and wants to discuss. Love to have a conversation with you. That'd be the best place to reach me.
Amazing. Thanks for joining me.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you very much.
This episode is brought to you by MoBurst, the AI-first growth engine trusted by iconic startups like Calm, Robinhood, Reddit, Uber, and Google. MoBurst is a digital full-service mobile-first marketing agency that helps companies to scale and become category leaders. Whether you're finding product-market fit or ready to accelerate growth, MoBurst delivers creative, data-driven solutions that help with scale and efficiency and impact. At MoBurst, we're not just guessing what works, we're predicting it. As an AI-first agency, MoBurst uses cutting-edge tools to analyze user behavior, adapt creative in real time, and uncover hidden growth opportunities. The result, marketing that's faster, smarter, and built to convert. From early-stage startups to global brands, we've helped hundreds of companies overcome complex challenges, unlock new audiences, and optimize every metric that matters. At MoBurst, we believe that creative thinking, advanced technology, and data are the core drivers of success at scale. If you're serious about scaling your business with precision and purpose, it's time to talk to MoBurst. Visit moburst.com and let's build something category-defining together.